Okay, so welcome. We're on the Mem Zayin Amud Beis, and the Mishnah had spoken about first about the father's rights to his daughter monetarily and other issues, and then also about the husband. And here we mentioned that the husband's chayiv in supporting his wife, the zonos. We also spoke about Pirkuna Pidyon, that has to ransom her if she gets captured, and also has to bury her if she dies in his lifetime. So the more goes into the subject about his chiyuvim. The way the Brisa first is quoted, it says that Chachamim made a takana that her husband has to support his wife in place of her earnings. That it sounds the way it says here, the way it's quoted over here, it sounds like that the initial enactment was that her earnings go to him. He gets her earnings. Or maybe that's the rice, maybe it's not a takana. Whatever reason, but he gets her earnings, and because of that, they compensated by saying that he has to support her. He gets her earnings, but he has to support her. This brings down that there's a question if you read it the way it is, or it's the opposite. Maybe Mataki and her earnings go to him because of he's supporting her. Maybe the kind of Mazonis is first. There's a question how to understand this first sentence, and Taisus refers us to Gemara later on. It's going to talk about which was the initial enactment. Was it that he has to support her, or that he gets her earnings? Either one. Either way, these two go together. Her earnings go to him, and he supports her. The second thing was about Kvura, Tachas Kesubasa. Ksuba means the money that she brings into the marriage. Not Ksuba that we talk about that he's Chayiv Ksuba to her, but this is talking about something that he gets from her. So the Ksuba he gets from her means when she gets married, she brings in what they call maybe a dowry. She brings in money to the marriage, and he eventually is going to yarshin that. There's an issue about while they're still married, so does he get the Paris only and it belongs to her? That's Nechse Mulur, or Kavinech Seson Basel, which means that he already owns it and he obligates himself to eventually pay back the value that it was worth when he came in. Two kinds of ways how the woman can bring in estate into the husband, but regardless, he's eventually going to yarshin it. So that issue about bringing in money, dowry, into the marriage, for that they enacted that the husband's mechuyev to bury his wife if she dies in his lifetime. So it says here two points. One is about the chiyuv mazonos, one is about the chiyuv of kvura. I'm going to mention three things, and we'll get to that in a second. But so far, it says about mazonos that he has to support her, food, and also kvura about burying her if she dies in his lifetime. And here says the reason is because of in placement of the Maaseh Yadayim, the earnings that she makes goes to him, and also the ksuba that she brings into him. The Brisa ends off strange. The fikach ba'al peros. Therefore, the Baal has the right to eat the peros of the nechse muluk. When she brings in property that belongs to her, it remains to her. Either she inherited it and before she came into the marriage or during the marriage. So the husband has the right to get the profits of that field, that estate. The estate still belongs to her. The Karen belongs to her, but the profits go to the husband. But the Brisa doesn't make sense because we didn't mention a word about peros. We spoke about Maaseh Yadayim, we spoke about Ksuba, we didn't speak about Peros. Peros Mandach Shmayu, who mentioned Peros? That more is jumping up. Where does it say Peros in the Brisa? The answer is, you're right, something's missing. Something's missing, you have to amend it. It should say like this. And this is the real, and the more can insert something that it didn't say originally, but that's what the Brisa must have meant. And it inserts the middle issue of Pirkuna Tachas Peros. Tikna Mazonos Tachas Maaseh Yadayim, that is said already. Pirkuna Tachas Peros, that's inserted. And then Kurasa Tachas Ksubas, also it said that, but the middle category was inserted now, that they also enacted that the husband has to redeem her if she gets captured, in place of the Peros that he gets her Peros, means this is one for, they balance each other out, that he gets her Peros, that he gets the profits of the fields of the estate that she owns, and in place of that, so he has to redeem her if she ever gets captured. So these are the three takanas of the husband. The Ambish said all three of them: Mizonos, Pirkuna, Kurasa. But here the Brisa explained what is balanced against that. That he gets her Maaseh Yadayim and he gets her Peros, and he also gets the Ksuba when she brings in the Ksuba to the marriage. So he gets that eventually. Also, if she dies, he'll yarshin it. And now the Brisa ends off the Pikach Ba'al Peros. Therefore, the husband gets the Peros, which is said already. It says Pirkuna Tachas Peros. So now the Gemara has to explain. Still has to be explained. What do these words mean? Before the words didn't make sense at all because we didn't mention Peros at all. The words before the Pikach Ba'al Peros before didn't make sense at all because we didn't speak about Peros. Now we did speak about Peros, but now it's still redundant to say therefore the husband needs Peros. We said Tiknu Pirkuna Tachas Peros. Malafikach. The Gemara explains that there might have been a different way that Chazal might have set it up. You might think that the point would be that in order to get Paris, be ready, the profits of her estate should be ready to redeem her in case she ever gets captured. So maybe make a fund, put it aside, don't need it. Don't the husband shouldn't be allowed maybe to use up the Paris, and then if she ever gets captured, he has to sell out his own money in order to redeem her. Maybe it's better to make a fund, put the money aside. He shouldn't be able to use it. She doesn't use it either. It should be put aside in case she ever gets captured. He should have money to redeem her. Because what does imkain mean? If he's going to eat it, then he's not going to have it anymore. He's not going to redeem her. You might think it's better to leave the money around. This way, if you let him eat it, he might not have the money and he might not redeem her when it comes time. Mimna means to hold back, like monera, mimna. Kamash molan, the ha'adifa, zimnin de lo molu. But the Gemara says, no, it's better to do this way, that we do allow him to eat the Paris. And because sometimes maybe that fund that will be set aside won't be enough. And then he won't redeem her. This is her fund. So Parak Lamadi Day, now that it hasn't been any cheshbon, so now he has the responsibility. Because we gave him Paris, and Rashi points out he doesn't keep a cheshbon exactly how much he made from those Paris, but he has supposed to have the Paris, and he has the responsibility to redeem her. And you don't just set aside the money as a fund, because then it depends how much money there is. Might be insufficient funds. So therefore we said you get the Paris, as many as they are, more or less. And if she ever gets captured, you have to take your own money in order to redeem her. And that's the good takana, and that's Pshat in our Mishnah. These are the three takanas, Mizonas, and Pidyon, and Kura.
Because he'll be grateful that he had Paros, not that he knows how much it is, just that he got Paros.
Right,
to make him grateful, as opposed to if it were in a fund and he would see how much it is, he'd say, well,
that's the money that's there.
X and this is more, I'll pay.
Right. But I don't know if the point is grateful as much as they obligated him. They gave him this, he gets something. Maybe he's saying the word grateful in the same sense. It doesn't mean just because of his gratitude, but they gave him an obligation. They said, this is fair. You should redeem her. You get the Paris as long as everything's fine. If she ever comes a time you have to redeem her from your own money. Maybe we're saying the same thing, just the great gratitude sounds a little bit like the goodness of his heart.
Well, if it were in a fund, it would also be fair, but he wouldn't think it's fair.
It would be fair.
I
He'll
got
say, no,
4 million from her.
It would be
and
fair.
Now they want 5 million, so I'll pay 4 million. But why should I pay 5
Right,
million?
not the question if it would be fair or not. He wouldn't be obligated. If it would have been, if the kind of would have been, they just set aside a fund, so they never obligated him. They just said, set aside the fund. Okay, set aside the fund. This is the money available. They didn't obligate him. Now they made it the kind of they obligated him. It's your responsibility.
It's like a score, I guess. I guess it as a score.
Yeah, I think it's all maybe keeping it in. Not everyone's going to pay the obligation. If he feels like he got something from her, he's gonna make sure to pay the obligation.
Okay, but it doesn't mean that we're relying on his gratitude. We made a takana, but the takana is that we told him that you got you got compensated for this obligation. But now we're not going to start measuring. If it would not have been an obligation, they just would have said that this fund has to be set aside in her name. Okay, so that's the fund.
Like the fact that it's
if it would have been a fund,
that makes it more of an obligation.
Makes an obligation, or else it wouldn't have been his obligation. The other side would have been there's no obligation. Just put it aside the fund for her. I'll put it aside. Then there's no more money. So go to the tzedakah fund. Like I don't have. It's not my obligation. This way they obligated him.
The extra million goes for her cleaning the house.
Okay, first one. The Gemara wants to know what's the svara that they made 1-for-1. Here we did the zonos tachas ma'asiyah there. How come they did it in this sense? How come they didn't mix and match? How come that the earnings go for the parnasa and the payers go pidyon? Why is that? Maybe switch around the reasons. They made the takana for the thing which is usual, common for a common and uncommon for an uncommon. Rashi says that the mazonos, of course, is common. The person has to eat, and also ma'asidayim is common. Earnings and parnasa and food, both of them are common things. So a common for a common. And perkuna tachas payers, both of them are uncommon. That a woman should get captured, and also payers. Rashi says is also not a common thing that a woman brings in the state. That she's going to take it as next look, that she keeps the principle that he's eating the Paris. It could be the regular way that they did it was that she brought in a dowry that's called Nixay Son Barzel, and he obligate. He takes it and he obligates himself for that value, and it's not a question of Paris. So Paris, Rashi says in the bottom line, that's also considered lo shliach. So they made the shliach for the motzoi, the common thing for the common thing, and the uncommon for the uncommon. This again has something to do later on. If a wife will say, "Don't give me mazonas and don't take my earnings," that's going to be a sugya that, since it says over here that the mazonas and the ma'asidam go hand in hand. So it could be that if the whole takana was because we want to give her food, usually a woman's earnings in those days was not enough to support herself. So it's a good takana that she should give her earnings to her husband, and then her husband will support her, and she'll get stability, financial stability. But sometimes she's a good earner and she's making more money, and she'd rather have her earnings.
That might be the opposite in general.
It could be, but that's the question of if a woman has the right to say, I don't want to get supported and I'll keep my own earnings. So it has to do with this sugya here that says that these two go together. Then it could be. The Gemara was asking that maybe make the takana otherwise. Maybe make the ma'asir dam should go for perkuna and Paris should go for mazonos. So this has to do with the sugya if she's allowed to waive her takana. Since they made it for her benefit, is she allowed to waive it or not? Maybe that's shaykhs to the sugya in the future.
Is mazonas food, shelter, and clothing?
Food, just food.
Just food, not shelter.
Just food. It could be that maybe you're right that maybe in the takana. I'm going to talk about now. The next Gemara Mamish now is going to talk about the pasuk
And
Sheirok
food is
Susah.
like probably the main
Bonus,
thing.
huh?
You have to feed her, but
Here it says
Wouldn't it be
food.
everything?
Here it says food. There is going to be a chiv of clothing also. Shelter. Shelter surely has to give her a house also. It doesn't say that over here. He surely has to give her shelter
If
also.
they're married, then they will live
If they live together, if there also is a case where a husband is Mishal Nash L'Shlish, so if he doesn't live in the same house. So there are issues about that. Surely is high, but I don't know if it's included in this word mazonos or not.
okay.
First, the second line. High Tana Saba mazonos daraisa. I mean, so far we learned the Bryce that spoke about the Takana Rabbanan, that the Rabbanan institute, the husband has to support his wife. But the Rabbi says there is a Tana that holds that as Midaraisa. Not only the Takana Rabbanan, like it says, Matachas Ma'asi Adeha, this Bryce before held that's only Rabbanan, but the following Bryce holds that as Daraisa. And it goes into the pasuk Sheirak Susav Anu Sala Yigra. That's a pasuk in Parshas Mishpatim. Over there, it's talking about an Amavriya. It's not even talking about a regular Jewish wife. It's talking. It is she's Jewish, but she's Amavriya, that she was sold by her father as a ketana, and then the master has a right to marry her. That was part of that agreement. That's what the father meant, that you could take her as a wife, or to the son of this master could take her as a wife. And over there it says Sheirak Susav Anu Sala Yigra, that he cannot diminish from her the rights of a regular wife, which is Sheirak Susav Onasa. And he is obligated to her as a regular Jewish wife.
Aitana means the one that we just said above.
No, the following. Tana Sabba Mazonas the Raisa. The following Tana holds that as the Raisa. The Tana before said it's Rabbanan. But the following Tana holds that as the Raisa. And I was going to bring a Raisa that says that it's the Raisa.
But Tiknu means it's the Rabbanan.
Right. And we said Tiknu because Ma'aseh Adayim, everything is Rabbanan.
I see.
All this was an actness of the
But this
Rabbanan.
Tana holds
And now
that
the
it's gonna
following
be the
Tana holds that
Raisa.
as the Raisa. So we're going to bring the Tana that says that it's the Raisa, that a husband must support his wife. Yes, like that. We didn't do that yet. We didn't do that. We're right up to there. We didn't read it yet. Second wide line, the Tanya. We learned in the Brisa. So the pasuk says, "Sheirok susabon asa." It's highlighted in green on the screen. Sheirok susabon asa lo yigra. What is translation of these three things? That the husband should not diminish from his wife. These three things. Sheirok susabon asa. What is the translation? So.
Oh,
Yes.
Sheira's up there. I see.
Sheira, Ksusa, Anasa. It's in blue and green, so that's why. Okay. Sheira, Elu Mazonos. Bechinu Omer, Basher Achlu, She'er Ami. The word share, he says, means food. And he brings a pasuk to prove that the word she'er means food. It says a pasuk in Micha that says, Basher Achlu, She'er Ami. Over there, it's talking about that the nations, they ate the flesh of Am Yisrael. But it's okay, it doesn't mean regular food, but he's used the word share means basa, share means flesh, and over there it's even talking about eating. There are other places also where the word share means flesh, but it wants to bring a pasuk where it means eating flesh. So you see that the word share is referring to food, and therefore the pasuk sheira means food. The husband should not diminish from his wife food. According to that, you see the mazonos is the raisa. That's what we're looking for. That Rabbi says this Tana holds that sheira is the food. So the obligation that husband has to give his wife food is a Torah obligation, not a rabbinic obligation. We finish off the brisa. Kesusa kamashmo. The word kesusa means literally means clothing. He has to give his wife clothing. That's what the Yaakov was saying. That clothing is also the rice. Here it says it's the rice, and nobody seems to argue maybe. And onasa is one more b'Torah. Ona means that he has to have marital relations. A husband is obligated to his wife for marital relations. The wife is also obligated to her husband. But here the pasuk is talking about that the husband may not diminish the marital relations, and that's ona more b'Torah. The word ona, usually we translate the word ona to mean time, but it's interesting that at the time Has to give her the time. Time for what? Time for marital relations. But it is interesting that the word ona is not found to mean time. We use
Ona is not-
you don't find it in the Tanakh. It's
So
only
it's
one time.
season, isn't
It
it
might be the
season?
only one time.
No,
It could be also. Where do you know that
ace,
from?
I don't
Ace,
know,
ace va'ona.
Ace,
Ace va'ona. Where do you know the word from? So many times we use the word ona to mean time, but it could be that it's a rabbinic term, like ona
Well, it's
kriya
usually a
shema.
period, like a period.
Right? How do you know that? How do you know that? It's true. We use it. We use it in that sense.
I
It
felt like a
talks about-
season also, you'd say. oh,
Also, where do you find that in the Torah? Nowadays, all these things they use times, but
I
where do
see.
you get the word from? So the Gemara is not going to say that the word ona means time. Very interesting. The Gemara is going to say right away it means something else. But usually we do use the word ona to mean time. You find onas on Maestros. You find onas Kriya Shema. Ona talks about onas Yom V'Layla. Talks about kama. Talks about the person has to be Porish. Samach Lavesta, kama, ona. Use the word ona as time. But the Gemara doesn't say that. Interesting. The Gemara doesn't translate the word ona. Ona more b'torah v'cheinu omer im ta'anez b'nosai. It uses the word about affliction over here. And it talks about over there that Lavan was telling to Yaakov that you make sure that you made a treaty, a shvua, that you should not afflict my daughters from holding back from them marital relations. So it comes out that according to the Gemara's translation of the word ona, it means it means affliction, and the point is that he should not afflict her, not that he should give her affliction.
That's
He
what
should not.
Lavan meant over there in the Tasa.
One possibility, another possibility.
I don't hit him, don't.
No one
don't
says
not
that, right?
feed him. I don't
Right,
know.
no, okay, you could learn Pashup Shot like that. Don't
no,
afflict them.
you
Don't afflict my
abuse
daughters. Right.
children.
I always get angry at Levin because he's makes himself to a big tzaddik, and Yaakov, he has to give Musa to Yaakov. Always get angry every person whenever he.
Okay.
But the Mepharshim one either the Gemara that either means that he should not hold back from them marital
afflict them by
relations,
holding back
or
from
maybe
relations.
he shouldn't have relations in a way which afflicts them, shlokadaka, things like that.
And the fact that there's two sisters that don't favor one and not the other.
Okay, that doesn't say, but
In
no,
terms
that's
of- in
already.
terms of
It
relations.
doesn't say all that. It doesn't say. But that's the point that the Gemara wants to say that you see that the issue of marital relations is referred to as the word ta'an there, and therefore onasa is going to mean that also that a husband must give his wife marital relations in a way that there shouldn't be affliction. Anyway, the point to look forward was she'era means mazonos. You see, mazonos is the rasa. The Brisa continues another opinion, which
All
is
three of the rice or just the fruit?
all three is the rasa.
All three
is the
Yeah, but
rasa.
we were interested in mazonos because we said mazonos is Rabbana. So here you find the Tana says mazonos is the rasa. You also find agav kesus and anos is also the rasa. That wasn't the subject. But you're right. You see from this thing, all three things are the rasa. The Gemara continues with another opinion that says that Rabbi Lazar is also going to say that mazonos is the rasa. He's going to learn the pasuk differently. He's going to come out on the bottom line. Onasa is going to be mazonos. He's also going to say that mazonos is the rasa, but he's going to dash the pasuk differently. She'era zu ona. He goes the opposite. He switches around the first and the third. Ksusa is going to stay in the same, but the first and the third, he's going to say all three things, but he's just going to change the order and that the translation. She'era, that's referring to ona. Why do you say that? V'cheinu omer ish shall kol she'er b'saro. Also, the word she'er means flesh. And over there it means but flesh. It means kirabasa. It means that it means the intimacy that a husband has with his wife. And over there it talks about this. Don't do erva. A person should not go to a relative. Don't have intimacy with a relative. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. The word sherbasaro means a relative. A person who is flesh, my flesh and
Is that
blood.
the end of the pasuk that they're quoting? Where's the end of what they're quoting?
Till the word. So you see the word she'er means flesh, and it's not talking about eating over here. And the Gemara is learning out that since it talks about erva, so the issue is about relations. And he's going to say that she'era is referring to having relations. So he also says that the ona, intimate marital relations is the right. So but he gets it from the word she'era, not from the word ona. And Ksusa, he also agrees kamashmo. That's the first shot he has to give her clothing. And onasa ela mazonos. He also says that mazonos is the raisa, but not from the word she'era, but from the word onasa. Where do you find the word onasa? Has anything to do with food? That also the word comes from affliction, but over there the affliction is not to eat. That Hashem afflicted you and made you hungry by someone. You were in the midbar and Hashem gave you food to eat. But the word inoy over there is referring to the affliction of being hungry. So the first one said the affliction was about not having relations, and here it says the word affliction is referring to not having food. So make sure that you don't diminish to a wife the thing which would be considered affliction if she doesn't have it. So both Tanakam and Rabbi both of them say that these three things are the Raisa, food, clothing, and marital relations. But the question is how to dash from the pasuk, and both of them hold that Mazonos is the Raisa, unlike the Tana before that said that it's only the Kana Rabbana. Top of the next page, top of Memches,
Are we continuing with the
continuing the
with the
Brisa.
Brisa?
The Brisa write more. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Omer Sheira Ksusa Lefum Sheira Think Ksusa Shalit and La Lo Shal Yaldos Ken Lo Shal Ken Lo Yalda Ksusa Vanasa Lefum Manasa Think Ksusa Shalit and Chadashim Yimasa Chama Lo Shchakim Yimasa Shamim. He learns another pshat in Sheira Ksusa Vanasa that only Ksus. It's only talking about clothing. The pasuk is only talking about clothing. It could be it's a drash level, but he says it's only talking about clothing. And the word Ksus is the word that we know. And Sheira and Onasa are coming to qualify what kind of clothing. You should give clothing according to is fitting for a younger woman to an older woman, and you shouldn't give the clothing of an older woman to a younger woman. Why is it called sheira? I'm not sure. I don't see. Rashi doesn't explain that the word sheira means give the ksus according to she'er. So I don't know why the word she'er said means flesh. I'm not sure what it means, but you have to give the proper clothing. So you can't give the clothing which is not appropriate for this woman. Give it according to her she'er, which I don't know about the word. I don't know how to get the word over here. And the other pshat of ksusa v'onasa also is going to say give the ksus according to the owner. Here again, we're saying the word owner does mean time. Here it does mean time, like we said before. That I didn't realize the Gemara here does say that it means time. The fumanasa thinks ksusa nothing to do with marital relations, but time. What does it mean? Time, the season. That you have to give the right kind of clothing for the right season. If it's the summer, if it's the winter, you can't give winter clothing in the summer. You can't give summer clothing in the winter. The word the chadashim and shchakim means new clothing and old clothing. Old clothing is worn out and they're not so warming anymore. New clothing means it could have said heavy clothing and light summer clothing, but here it talks about new clothing and worn out clothing. Worn out clothing is not warm anymore. So he's obligated to give clothing both according to the age and according to the season.
So Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov could have been the Tana that says that Mazonos.
So very nice. So Lev Yaakov is looking for who says that is Rabbanan, means he had a Tana before. So Taisa says, like Lev Yaakov said, he starts off at least, and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov was going to be Pirish Rashbam. No, we would have thought Taisa is coming against what Lev Yaakov says, that we would have thought against you. You're right, that to be the Pashup Shot, that he's the one who holds that it's the Rabbanan, doesn't say Mazonos. But he says, Pirish Rashbam, that the Eliezer ben Yaakov also holds that Mazonos is the Raisa, because he brings the end of the Raisa, which the Gemara doesn't quote. The Gemara says that according to Rabbi Eliezer, the Brisa itself speaks out. He has the Brisa in front from someplace that says that Kal v'chomer, if he's chayav to give clothing, then surely he's chayav to give the other two things of food and marital relations. So if he's there, Taisa ends off. Tema, the Brisa the Lel, the Tani Tikna Mazonos, Sachas Mas Yadeh, the Mashma the Mazonos Rabbanan Keman Hase. Taisa ends off with a question. If you say that even Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov also holds that Mazonos is the Raisa, but a Kal v'chomer, so then there's no Tana holds that's Rabbanan. So how is the Tana before that says it's Rabbanan? How is he going to learn the Psukim?
Manase is what?
Who is he going to go according to? According to which Russia is he going to hold like? How is he going to learn the pasuk over here? Sheira, Ksusa, or Nasa. Either Sheira might mean Mazonos.
How's he going to
Learn the Psukim. Right.
Can you say that I don't have to learn the Kal v'chomer?
Could be, but could be. The Gemara continues. Tani Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef said over a brisa, which is going to continue with the issue of the pasuk Sheira, Ksusa, or Nasa, and it says a qualification Sheira Zukir Basa. That the Sheira, he probably also holds that Sheira is referring to marital relations, like
Basar would be relation.
Basar means intimacy. It doesn't mean relations means intimacy. The Gemara is going to say that it's not enough just to have actual relations, that he can impregnate her and he can have, but it has to be that he has intimacy, which means we shouldn't do like the Persians do, and that they have relations while they're dressed. That's not enough. The wife is not satisfied with that. If the husband only wants to have relations only while they're dressed, so then the woman could demand the divorce, and he's chayav to give ksuva. That's not a marriage. That's not what the marriage obligates. So the sheira, which means owner, doesn't only mean the actual act of owner that he was able to have a intercourse with her. That's not enough. It has to be that there should be kiruvasa, which means intimacy. In fact, that's what we learned about Mazonos. We learned about Mazonos. We learned that it's machlokas tanam if the Mazonos is the Raisa Rabbanan. We got some more information also about ksus, clothing, and also about ona, about the mitzvah of the obligation of marital relations. That's all the shia budim of a husband to a wife. Also, what else did we have before? We had about the Pirkuna and Kura, the other kind of Rabbanan.
So the first two we learned before that, because That's to create very, very.
That's all the Rabbanan.
all
That
the Rabbanan.
right, and that Tana held Mazonis is also the Rabbanan, and this right, these Tanam hold that Mazonis is the rise.
All
But-
these three, all these. three,
Yes. Rabbi Dama, if he should be as well, here talk about the Mishnah about the burial. So it says besides the burial, the grave, he also has to pay for the flutes, 2 flutes, minimum of 2 flutes, and also a lamenter, a konenes. That's the funeral.
Lamenters,
What?
two,
2
Minimum.
flutes, right? 2 flutes.
lamenters, two.
1. Mekonenes.
Oh,
2 chalilim, 2 chalilim, 1
Mekonenes.
lamenter.
Oh, I thought it was.
Mekonenes, right? Mekonenes, not mekonenes.
That was the kid, yeah.
Shtei chalilim, 1 mekonenes.
Okay.
So the one was what the machlokes is about. The Tanakama Savani Lo, the Tanakama doesn't agree that he has to have also these fruits and the lamenter. Hey Chidami, what is the case? Means the Gemara is going to say this depends on the custom of the place, whatever's normal. Either orche, my time Tanakama, Damalo, either Lavorcha, my time Davuda. If the place, if that's the custom, that's how they do a respectable funeral, even the minimum that they have 2 flutes and a mekonenes. So why should the Tanakama argue? And if it's not the custom, so why should Davuda say they do have to? What's the machlokes about? That it's that here it goes into the issue about his family and her family. That means that a husband is obligated to respect his wife according to her level. The different standards. There's different brackets. So what do you call them? Social brackets, and they have different standards. So if she is of a family of one bracket, then he's of a family of a different bracket. How does he have to honor her in general? How much does husband have to honor his wife according to her bracket, her family's customs, or according to his family's customs?
Well, today, we go according to the man's custom, that if he's a Sephardi, then she has to do everything.
We're not talking about halacha, not halacha. We're talking about standards of living. Standards of living. Of course, if he can't afford it, he can't afford it. If he doesn't have money, he doesn't have money. But if he has money, and he says that in my family we don't do these things. We don't get mink coats. And in her family they do get mink coats, and he has enough money to get the mink coat.
Yes, he's going to take Chumer and both.
So it says that this Tanakama Savakyamin is this.
He gets himself a short, but I mean, code for the wife, that's the
Only there's a later on it's going to say at Russia only Mo Beni Redesimo that she gets elevated with him, she doesn't go down. Means that if he's a higher bracket than her, then he has to treat her like his bracket.
There you go.
And if he's a lower bracket, then she doesn't go down from her bracket. Means she gets the benefits of
She
both.
goes up with him.
She goes up with him, she doesn't go
down.
down with him. Means if he's higher, she goes up with him. Here's his standard. But if he's lower than her, she doesn't go down to his standard. She's obligated, of course, if he has enough money, then he's obligated to. This is no. Everybody's going to hold to this. But the question is it only in his lifetime or even after he dies? After she dies, that's the question over here. Here she died, and he's going to bury her. Does he have to bury her according to the funeral? What do you call him? What do you call the person over there? The undertaker, the one who's in charge of the funeral. The funeral home. He comes. We have different brackets. We have different standards, different funerals for how we have the $10,000 package and the $20,000 package and the $30,000 package. So the question, he has a higher bracket than her. So in his lifetime, he'd have to treat her according to his bracket. But that's the question over here. So
I just realized something. There's a guy over here in the Rova. He flies business class. He told me he flies his wife business class also. I thought it was a chassidus. It's not. If he flies business class, he has to take his wife, even if she's going to fly separately.
right.
Let's say so he has to
True.
fly
Very
on
nice.
business class.
Very nice example. Very nice example.
Why wouldn't he? What kind of guy is this? Wait, he's gonna fly first.
No, I'm talking about they're going to. He's going
Separately.
separately.
They're saying, what a quick
I say, no, it ain't. No, that's he's a businessman and she's not. She does the business. He has to fly. Okay, I'm just saying.
So that's what it says. That's the
You're
same.
saying it's
That's,
not Pasha. I didn't think
he's
so.
not Pasha.
He's working. She's seeing and reading the newspaper.
It doesn't make it.
Okay, you're saying it's Pasha. Okay, fine.
okay.
You got the
So
Gemara.
there's everyone agrees only of any medicine. The question is if it's even after death. Tanakama Savaki, I mean, the case it would be that in his circle they would have such a custom. Only should be Israel. He's a poor guy over here, but even the poorest in his circles they would give that minimum, and in her circles they wouldn't have. The woman who would get married wouldn't have to have 2 flutes. So Tanakama Savaki, only a lifetime is he obligated to bring her up to his status. After she died, so then he doesn't have that obligation, and therefore he could treat her according to her standard. But Rabbi Sava,
How do we learn that from the Tanakama?
because he says that he doesn't have to give her the 2
Tanakama of
flutes.
what? We're in.
It doesn't say flutes. So Rita says he has to give flutes. So Tanakam didn't say so. Mashma is
Has to give what?
the flutes and the lamenter. Rav Yehuda
I
says,
see from the flutes and lamenter.
Rav Yehuda says he has to give it to her. Tanakama didn't say that. It sounds like he's arguing. Rav Yehuda seems to be arguing on somebody.
Oh, thank you.
Tanakama
Okay.
didn't say that.
Okay,
So
well,
Tanakama, his
sounds
silence,
like after the death.
he doesn't have to give her. So why not? Because it's not her bracket. And even though his bracket would be, but now that she died, he doesn't have to respect her according to his bracket.
Well, we read it. Oh, we were reading that it meant anybody's bracket.
I said, I feel only Shevi, no, it says, I feel only Shevi Israel, even the poorest. But now we're trying to figure out what is the
Who's
machlokes going
oh,
about.
what if she's the okay.
That the poorest in his bracket, even the poorest would get this. But in her circles, not bracket, in her circle, okay, maybe bracket, whatever you want to call it. In her circles, in her family, they don't give such a kind of fancy levaya for the poor people. They don't get two flutes. So here the question is, what?
I didn't read the Mishnah.
We didn't have anything in the Mishnah. You're right. The Mishnah said if Yehuda says he has to get the minimum.
So
two
now we're
flutes.
proposing that it means.
We're trying to find the machlokas. What could you argue about? What's it argue about? How can anybody argue? If that's the
Okay.
custom, you have to do it. If it's not the custom, you don't have to do it. So we're finding that this depends what the custom is. There's his family custom, her family custom.
She might be
Is he
right.
obligated to treat her like his family custom? Have you knows that even after death, he also is obligated to bring her up to his bracket. And therefore, if in his family that'll be the custom to have two flutes and a lamenter, he has to get it for her also.
So then what's the machlok?
That's the machlokas. If the halacha that only mo any redisimo even applies after death.
I just
One second,
realized
just to get the Pasuk Shana first.
Oh, I see. Okay. Between the Tanakam and Rabbi Yehuda.
Right,
Okay.
right.
I just realized now, tell me correct me if I'm wrong, please. You have some families that they have two cars, the husband has a fancier car, it's the wrong.
Right,
thing. He has
right.
to- Whatever
Also-
car he drives, he has to give her the same
Good,
thing.
good. Also, Moshe's Pasuk.
He drives a Lincoln, he has to
No,
give
no,
her.
but usually the woman has the van for the kids.
No, that's it, they're both, they're about 40 or 50, they're on my little kid.
That's a very technicality.
He has a Lincoln, he has to
Right,
give her a
you
Lincoln
read in
also.
the books that he rides Lincoln and his wife drives the Jaguar, which is pretty even, you know.
Oh, okay, that's even,
Okay.
okay.
Amar Chisda Amar Maruk Halacha Kav Yehuda. Machlokes, the machlokes now halacha. So he passed on Kav Yehuda that he has to bring up his wife to his bracket even after her death. Good.
We're happy with the machlokas and we're saying.
Yes,
that's what
happy.
it
And
is.
yes, and who we
And that
pass on
the-
like
and we paskin
like
Rabbi
Rabbi
Yehuda.
Yehuda. Good.
She
Understood.
would have to come up to him.
Right.
even
He
after
brings
death.
her up even after
He
death. He
brings
has to
her up
treat her.
even after death.
Even
and
after
he
death.
has to
According
pay
to-
for the funeral.
Right.
Her funeral will be as mechubad as his funeral
Right.
was or will
And
be.
that happened with me.
Will be.
But I would
He's still
think, I
alive.
would think
He's still
that,
alive.
that the funeral is today, it's still a little bit in her life. In other words, the funeral is still connected to her.
No, the Gemara says that's the machlokas. The Tanakh holds he doesn't have to. Once she dies, he doesn't have to make a funeral according to his standard. He makes a funeral according to her family standard. That's the machlokas. That's what the Gemara said the machlokas was.
No, because it seems to be that he can't wait. It
No,
feels
no,
like he
no.
can't wait for her to leave the world.
Why
so
do
he
you say
can
that?
drop this.
Why do you say that? Well,
Why can I say
where
that?
do you-
Because
You don't see that in the Gemara. She died. Another question is how much does he have
I
to?
mean, of course,
honor.
two foods is a small.
They don't want Ani Shev
I'm not
Yisrael, but
thinking
yeah,
about that,
no.
I'm thinking about
That's talking about Ani Shev Yisrael. If you be rich, so the machlokas still applies. That doesn't make a difference if it's the poor. To be richer also, because you have to honor her according to his bracket, according to her bracket, according to her family's customs.
There's a story about a gadol whose wife wanted him to use a certain becher for Shabbos, and for decades he used it, and as soon as she died, he went back to the one that he really wanted to use. Who was it? So that wasn't like he was waiting for her to die so he could use his becher, but now that she's dead, he's going to use the one that he wants to use.
I don't know if it has to do with Agamara, but it's a nice story.
Well, I'm just trying to give an example of what
He
people
wanted to
just
use the
waiting.
smaller one. I found it the bigger. That's what I heard. I don't know
Oh,
if it's true.
smaller.
Because
not
he
better.
had very small back.
That's what I heard. I don't know if it's true. but that's-
Okay, whatever.
Very of Chisda Amar Maruk, Mishin is Tata.
Story.
If somebody
You like it.
somebody went crazy. Mishin is Tata. Somebody became a shota. He became a shota, and he can't take care of his.
Today it could be today. He had Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Mishin is Tata. And now he has to. His wife has to be supported. That he's not around to support her, but he has an estate. So Bezdin Yodel Nechasav is not in the Mefaris and his Ishto, Banabul, Nosav, Davacha. So Bezdin goes down to his estate and they sell it, whatever they have to sell, in order to give his wife the food and parnasa. They say parnasa means the clothing. This mizonos means the food and clothing, and his wife and his sons and his daughters, and even for davar acher. What does davar acher mean? We're going to held in suspense a couple of lines till the Gemara is going to say also something else. Also, we'll see soon. Who said that? Rav Chisda, the name of my ukva, the Mora. Moshe from a brisa. What's the difference in the following brisa? It says Not in case someone went crazy, but me shal dinas hayam. If somebody went overseas and his wife is here, she doesn't have any food. The wife comes to Bezdin, my husband left, and I don't have food. So Bezdin takes care of her. Bezdin Yodan Lechasav Zanin finance in his sister. Bezdin goes to his estate and they whatever they have to do to sell, whatever they have to do in order to give her food and clothing, but only for the wife.
That means they set aside for us.
The based in your dean. What
What's
does it mean?
What?
She demands. She's demanding food. So Bezdin goes to his estate and it gives her food and clothing. His wife. Yes, please.
Again, the guy who went off mentally, what happens?
So Bezdin takes care of his wife and his children in his stead. He's not able
Your
to.
dean means they go into.
They go down into his estate and they take from there whatever they have to give her for her food and clothing. For the wife, the
And
sons, the
children.
daughters, and also the baracha. Something else also. Secret. And the kasha is the Bryce says it's not a case of someone who went. How was the word you used? Use a nice word. What he went
They were mentally off.
mentally off. But here the case is somebody that went physically off. That he left. He went to Medina Sam. He's not around. He didn't come back. So the wife goes to Bezdin.
That's a bad
I don't.
thing.
We don't. Maybe he went to come back and he didn't come back. We don't know what's happening.
Okay,
Maybe the ship drowned. I don't know. But
Oh,
he didn't come back. So she needs food. So she goes to Bezdin. Bezdin goes to his estate and makes sure that she has food. But here it says only for the wife. But not for the sons and daughters and not for the davar, whatever that means. So he doesn't know what that means. So it's a kasha. How come here only for the wife?
Then there's two cases. One is he went to this yam, one is he went crazy.
Right. And what's the difference?
Yeah, why should there
That's
be a
the
difference?
The
And
Gemara
is
says
that the answer? Is
that was the
is
kasha.
at the end of the.
That was the brisa, right? And not a
That's the
kasha.
brisa.
So the kasha. Amalei, who said to who, by the way? Ravina asked Ravashi. Ravashi said, "What's the kasha?" The person who left the Medina say, he went knowledgeably. He knew he's leaving, so he should have left instructions what to do for his sons and daughters. If he didn't, so he doesn't mean to support them. He's not mechuyev to support them. The wife is mechuyev to support. The sons and daughters is not mechuyev to support. So if he left intentionally, knowingly, he knew he's leaving, so he should have left instructions what to do if he doesn't come back. And if he didn't, so he can't assume that he wants to give to his sons and daughters. Maybe he doesn't have to.
But they are his sons and daughters.
He doesn't have to support them. We're going to see soon. A man is not mechuyev to support his children. He's mechuyev to support his wife. He's not mechuyev to support his children. They'll be coming up.
Till age of 7, no?
We'll get there. We're not there yet. We'll get it. So far, it says it's not mechuyev to. So if he's not mechuyev to, we're not going to say that he probably wanted to. If he wanted to, he should have said so. But
Is he obligated to support lesson 6?
I don't know, but it's going to be a later on. We're not holding there yet. It doesn't say. So far, he's not obligated to support his children. We'll see later on. But therefore, you can't assume. If it's going to mean 6, then it means the children here are older than 6, whatever the case is. Here it says, we're not going to say he probably wanted to. But the wife, he has to. But the case of the person who went mentally off, so he didn't do that knowingly. So you could assume that probably a man would want to support his children. If there was a reason he should have left instructions and he didn't, so then we see that he didn't mean to. So he should have, if he wanted to, he would have. But the case of the person who went Nishtata, he became a Shota, he didn't have warning to be able to give instructions. So therefore, we do assume that a regular person would want to support his sons and daughters and also Davar Acher. And now the Gemara goes into what's Davar Acher? My Davar Acher, what is that Davar Acher before? Jewelry, door, fragrance, summon, whatever a woman needs, tachshitim. She doesn't need, besides having food and clothing, also whatever she needs to adorn herself. And if Yosef
brings up.
Davar Acher doesn't mean
You usually think it's a davar shuli.
so it means shuli, not shlili, like something which is not so
Secondary,
important.
no?
Secondary. That's you're right.
Shuli?
No, you said shlili. I'm saying shuli. That thing is not so important. Not that it's bad. You're right. Davar Acher sometimes things. Who knows what that's going to be? So no, it doesn't mean a bad thing. It does mean something which is not so important. So some say tachshitim.
Less important.
Less important.
Who's
Like
he
this-
dressed up for? He's overseas.
A woman likes to get dressed. Even
For
in the
herself?
bathroom. Even in the
Right,
bathroom.
Yosef Amar tzedakah. Yosef says, do you take tzedakah from his estate? Do you give from his estate tzedakah? So
Is it stuck or stam or that she gives stuck? Sometimes
So-
she wants to feel like if someone knocks on the door, she doesn't want to feel like she can't give anything.
I don't know. Madam matachshit coach kein tzedakah. Madam tzedakah will tachshit yavina la lo nichalei detinvil. The Gemara says that it's more. It's machlokas over here. What the Davar Acher is. The way our Gemara says, according to our Girsa, we're going back to the Brisa. The
What
Brisa is
happened with the tuck sheet? I didn't get about tuck sheet.
the tachshit.
That's one of the.
That's what the Davar Acher means. As if it would say that the Brisa, the Chista. Wait 1 second.
Mandamar tuck sheet call shechein tzedakah. Mandamar tzedakah about tuck sheet. I thought it would say low. Did I go too far?
The gersa that we have is going on the brisa. The brisa says that you don't give davar acher. In the case where he went overseas, you don't give davar acher. So according to our gersa, that's the way the brisa, the davar acher is referring to the case of lo davar acher. The case where he went overseas and you don't give davar acher. So one madam says you don't give her takshitim. The other madam says you don't give tzedakah from his estate. The madam who explains takshitim, you don't give shul, you don't give tzedakah. But says you don't give tzedakah, but takshitim you would give, because the husband could be assumed that he doesn't want his wife to become disgusting. That if she doesn't have jewelry, she doesn't have perfumes, so it'll be disgusting. So there's more reason that he'd want to give his wife takshitim than he'd want to give tzedakah, and therefore, even if you say that lo davar acher means you don't give tzedakah, but takshitim you will give.
Maybe the other way around. Maybe he doesn't want her to look beautiful because put an eye on her.
Okay, I'm just saying the Gemara.
He's talking about iron, maybe it means that she wants to get dressed at home. Not when she goes out. She feels better, or she feels psychologically good for
Okay,
Yeah, she knows she's out in
a
society.
little question that he might be nervous.
In those days, they didn't go out that much.
In the tachshit, the kol shekain tzedakah, I don't quite get it. What's
If
the
you
kol
say that
shekain?
you don't, if you say you don't give takshitim, then kol shekain you don't give tzedakah.
Oh, that you don't give.
And that's why I was stressing it's
If
going
it
on the
means
brisa.
tachshit that you don't give, that's the
It's going on the
point.
brisa, it's going on the blue, it's going on the brisa. We went to
Yeah,
the Medina Sayyam. Rashi has another shot, but he has the big
This is the
gersa.
guy who just left.
Right. There is a different gersa in the Gemara. Rashi brings down different shot, different gersa. That's going on the first thing where you do give it. But the way our Gemara says it's going on the brisa, that says in the case that he went to Medina Sayyam, you don't give davar acher. So one shot says you don't give takshitim, you don't give tzedakah. The other one says you don't give tzedakah, but takshitim you do give because he does. He's concerned about his wife. New Gemara. He's not around. He's went away, and his wife died. Bezdin has to bury her. That they bury her according to his honor, according to his bracket. So the is the fi kvoda below the fi kvoda. No such thing. Surely he has to go up to her bracket. She never loses her bracket, her custom. So only the fi kvoda. Ema af lefi kvoda. That means even according to his bracket, which now we're getting into a machlokes. That was machlokes before we done the rabbanan. So it's passing like Abiyuda again. That the fact that the halacha that he has to bring her up to his bracket is even after she dies, and therefore Bezdin has to bury her according to his bracket.
Of the husband.
What?
Of the husband.
Even of the husband, not
So
only
that's
her.
the because this is the opinion that says even after death,
Right,
she
right.
You have to hire the
Right,
she has to get
right,
the husband.
Right, and we pass like Abiyuda. A person said, if my wife dies, he's dying. He's dying, and he says he gives these open instructions. If my wife dies, don't bury her from my estate. So it says here, Shalom. We listen to his instructions. And the Gemara says, of course, listen to his instructions, even if he would have said that. So a little introduction, that if he dies first, he gets ksuba. Obligated to bury her when she dies.
The sons.
That's her yorshim, not his yorshim. Means her yorshim, because her yorshim got something. There's money over there. There's money. Since she got ksuba, so there's money. So the ones who yarshin her ksuba means if they're different yorshim, the husband and the wife. So her yorshim are the ones who have to bury her because they got the ksuba money. That's what it's for. So they use the ksuba money to bury her. And the husband's yorshim, the husband's not around. The husband died first. The husband died first, and the wife died. So her yorshim have to bury her, and not his yorshim. They could say that her yorshim, it's your mother. Whatever, you got Yerusha from your mother. So you should be the one to take the money that you got from the Yerusha and bury her. And the husband's yorshim don't have to bury her.
Well, he had like a previous marriage.
Whatever the case is, there are two different Yoshim. If they're the same Yoshim, there's no question. But if there's different Yoshim, the wife's Yoshim and the husband's Yoshim. So the wife's
So he's saying, don't bury it from my
estate because she has an
because
estate.
she's gonna.
And her Yoshim, you're right. So here the question is the opposite. The Hakim only says if he instructs so. It says he instructs. If he instructs, how come if he says you listen to him? Because the estate goes to the Yisomim and the Yisomim don't have to pay the husband's wife's Yorshim's responsibility. So even if he didn't say Kilo Amanami, then the estate goes to the Yisomim. They don't have to pay for the widow's funeral eventually. They let her Yorshim pay for it. Ella was a misquote. That's true that you don't use his money to pay for her funeral. Her Yorshim will pay for her funeral. Ella Omer Meis who lo sikberu. A person, nothing to do with ksuba. A person, 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 a these instructions, don't bury me for my instructions, don't use my money to bury me. So what are you supposed to do? Who's supposed to bury you? He's talking about himself. If I die, don't use my money to bury me. So what does he want? That she comes from the community funds. No, ain't Shamalo. He can't give instructions to make his sons rich on the cheshbon of the tzibur. So you use his money, take his money to bury him, and they'll get less of a Yerusha. New Mishnah.
What was the last call?
Which thing?
I get lost.
First it talks, which case?
His last case.
That the person leaves instructions, don't use my money to bury me. What's okay?
To bury himself.
Yeah, he's dying, and he says, he leaves a last will, my money should not be used to bury me.
Who's gonna pay for it?
That's it, it's tzedakah money.
What's the law from the law?
Mav Kol Imenu, we don't believe him, we don't trust, we don't give him, it isn't his right to, why? Because Mav Kol Imenu, Sheyashir Esbana, V'yafal Asmal Tzibur. It's not in his authority to enrich his children and fall himself on the tzibur, that the tzibur will have to take care of him. You agree to it? Okay, next. La'olam he b'rishus ha'av asher tikanes l'rishus ha'bal. Now we're talking about the woman, the transition from becoming the arusa to become the nesua. Till now she's been under the dominion of the father, and now she's going into the domain of the husband. So it says that she continues to be in the domain of the father until she comes into the domain of the husband. Okay, then that's called an asuin. And now, which might mean, literally, might mean the case where she comes into his, she comes into him, that's what we call chuppah. The first line, some of the gersa l'chuppah, which the Gemara later on is going to quote it l'chuppah, because she says the gersa might be l'chuppah. So she's considered rusa, and she's under the domain of the father until comes into the chuppah to the husband's house. Then it says that not only that, is also when she's transferred, when she's given over from the father to the husband. Now, they didn't always live in the same place, and there was a bridal procession. They went from the father's house to the husband's house. Sometimes the family came along, sometimes they didn't. So Masar
That means that's your raya. That has to be only when she's the nisuin.
This is for the purpose of nisuin. When she's given over for the purpose of nisuin. When she comes into the chuppah for the purpose of nisuin. If she just comes into the husband's house to visit him, that's not called when she's given over. This is the marriage. She comes into the house, and that's now it says you can say a period over there if you want. Now Masar ha'av l'shluchei abal. The husband sends a delegation to pick up his wife, pick up his bride, and the father is not able to go all the way with the. So he gives them over. They make a nice wedding party, a goodbye party to the bride, and the delegation of the husband takes her and brings her to the husband.
What does it mean? It means he goes.
I didn't say it yet. That's the first sentence. That if the father gave over his daughter to the delegation of the husband, that's already called the Rishus Abal. Even though she didn't get to his house, that Masira, that giving over, is already considered that she's already called the Masira.
Already considered Shinui Rishus.
That's what it sounds like. Next case. What if the father's coming along? He's also going with the procession. That he's going and walking along. Or the delegation of the father is going with the delegation of the husband. The whole ceremony. So then it's not called that she left. That's still not left. She didn't leave yet because the father's still there, or the father's delegation is there. But but once the one delegation gives over to the other delegation, and now she's on with the delegation of the husband, now she's called the Rishus Abal. Let's first talk about Achitikanes L'Chuppah, the Rishus Abal. Then it talks about Masira, giving her over. Either the father gives over to the husband, or to the Shluchim, or the Shluchi Abal, the Shluchi Abal. That's also called the kind of a Chuppah. That's what it sounds like.
Was there such a big time difference? So this is going to be enough more about why do we?
When do we care exactly when it happens?
Yeah, why do we care when exactly it happens?
Right, so all the sfiyos, if she dies, if there's Yerusha, all those things that might happen after that, is she considered in the sewer? Afaris Nedorim, if she makes a nether on the way, and the father hears the nether, and he says no, that nether is off. But is it already?
But is it in his?
It is still domain or not? Rashi says something about this.
She's in the shulchan of the That's
Here Rashi brings down a couple of lines and narrow lines. We didn't do it yet, but Mesiras Alakol, here it is, about 4 or 5 lines, and they go down and they were narrow lines. The Yorsha, the Tamala, the Maisiyadeh, the Lachol Devar Ish Bisha, Kaima Mesira Shluchim, the Mukam Chopa. That as far as Yerusha, if she dies, there's a Yashin her. If she dies, is the husband allowed to become Tamid to her? And if she's earning something, she makes some earning, whatever on the way, whose is it? And anything else that a husband might have rights to his wife. So when's the transfer happen from the father to the husband? So it happens by this giving over. The Gemara says, and the Mishnah says la'olam. How does the Mishnah start? La'olam. The first word in the Mishnah, la'olam. La'olam, because she's forever, and there was just an opposite, so it's extra word. What is this word la'olam? It's coming to stress something. So la'fuke Mishnah Rishon. There's a Mishnah later on. The time he gives man v'lo nisu ochlos b'shalom ochlos b'truma. Kamash malo la'olam. That the Mishnah is a Mishnah later on. Over there it says itself is Mishnah Rishon and Mishnah Achron. The original Mishnah, then a later Mishnah. First it says that once the time came that they should have gotten married and they didn't. There's usually was 12 months. That after the time of the Erison, and they said we're going to get married, so then there's 12 months clock, and then the husband is supposed to take the wife, and if he doesn't, so then she says like you're supposed to marry me. So there's a Mishnah that says that first of all he's have to support her, even if he didn't marry her, he's have to support her, and also ochos b'truma, that she has the right to eat truma even though she's not yet nesua. Usually we only allow the nesua to eat truma. She's getting married to a kohen. The chassan is a kohen, but he didn't take her in yet. He didn't take her into his house. So. And he didn't even send her, even though no Masira, there was no delegation, nothing like that. She's still by her father's house, and the husband and the husband didn't come up. Supposed to be 12 months. He's supposed to come to marry her. He didn't come. So the Mishnah over there says originally they said she's allowed to eat truma. Since the husband, if the husband's a Kohen, even though he didn't marry her, didn't do the Nisuin, there's Erison, but then she's called Miknas Kaspo, but with her bonus she's not supposed to eat truma. Once it comes 12 months, she's allowed to eat truma. But our Mishnah says La'olam to exclude, to say that's not true. Kamash olam, that no, she's considered in the father's rishus until chuppah. And the Mishnah itself over there says that. The Mishnah over there says that Beis Shalachreim Amru, that even though Mishnah Rishona said that she gets truma after 12 months, but later on they said not like that. So our Mishnah
truma is that she eats the truma.
The Mishnah yes, says that she gets truma after 12 months. Right. Kamash Malan is our Mishnah says la'olam. Not that Mishnah, right? And now Kamash Malan, our Mishnah comes to tell you no, la'olam. La'olam, she's in the domain of the father until she gets chuppah. Until she goes into the chuppah. That's the question now. So first it says about that. That's the question now. The rest of now that's the point that I was talking about. That the Mishnah first says that she's in the rishus of the father. Achitikanes, top line, rishus habal. Or the chuppah, the guess it might be. And then the Mishnah goes on to say that Masira also is something. Masira. And the question is, if it's mamish everything, is this Masira that we're going to say now, is it even going to be for truma also? That's going to be the main subject coming up. Does the Masira, she didn't go into the husband's house. She was given over to the delegation of the husband or to the husband on the road, but she didn't come into his house yet. So the Mishnah says that it's considered Harei B'Shus Habal. Does it even mean even the Gabe Truma also? So it's the issue about Truma. How come she doesn't eat Truma when she's Arusa? She's Miknas Kaspo. As far as Miknas Kaspo, the reason with the rice is she should be able to eat Truma from Erison already. Why is she not eating Truma?
I never thought that maybe because she's not mad in the office.
No, I thought because somebody from the father's house is not
right. So there's machlokes. The reason why she doesn't eat truma. One is because she might get truma. She get a truma package from her husband, and all the brothers and sisters over there. The kala got a package from the chassan, full of all kinds of goodies, and those goodies are truma goodies, and everyone wants to have a bite. They're all Yisraelim when she's going. So we don't want. It's dangerous to have a woman that's eating truma in the house of a Yisraelim. That's one reason. According to that. She's out of the according to that. Once she's out of the father's house, there's no brothers and sisters over there. So then it might be a reason to give her truma. But there's another reason that since till the husband has relations with her, so it could be that he's going to find the moon and say this is not what I meant, and it might be kedusha toes, and the whole thing might be off, and therefore retroactively she wasn't even married. So then it might be it's not just to be given over the delegation. It has to be she comes into the house and then they're going to have relations. They'll see that if she has a mum or not, and then he says, okay, this is a good marriage. So that might be enough to mean Rashi which is on this machlokes. That's going to be a sugya now. When does she allow? Is the Masira? Is the what would be a nice word for Masira? Is the
handing over?
One
handing over.
Handing
Changing
over.
the shoes, I don't know.
Okay. The article use the word delivery. Okay, I'm not sure, but giving over the bride to the chassan, is that enough to be considered even for truma? Masa what? Transfer. Okay, good. The Masira means something about giving over, making the transfer, like to be Moser, to give over. Okay, give you handing over. Just to look at the overview over here, the blue just has different opinions. You have Rav Asi, Shmuel, Rish Lakish, Rav Yochanan, and Rav Chanina. a lot of opinions. What does it mean, this Masira over here? Different opinions about what the Masira accomplishes. Rav says that it accomplishes everything, that she's considered now Nesua, with the exception of Truma. She can't eat Truma until she gets to his home. Just she was delivered, she was handed over, transferred. That's not enough to eat Truma. That's wrong. Ravasi Amaf Truma. Ravasi says she's allowed to eat Truma also. As Rashi said, it might be dependent on the reason. If it's because that the brothers and sisters shouldn't get, so it's okay. She's out of their father's house. If it's because we want to make sure that it's not a kedusha to us, maybe wait. That might be the machlokas. But Rav says she's not allowed to eat truma. Rashi says she is allowed to eat truma. The kasha against Ravasi. Either Rav Huna asked the kasha, or Rav asked the kasha. It says in the end of the in the beginning of our Mishnah. This is a quotation from our Mishnah. It's a little different girsa. That's supposed to be a quote from our Mishnah. Our Mishnah, the way we have it, doesn't really say that. Our Mishnah says, but the gersa he had was which might be change the gersa in our Mishnah or change the gersa over here. Where it is, it means to say that he sees there is a difference between the first the stage of coming into the Rishus Habal, coming into the chuppah to his house, or then the Mishnah says also, but it's two different things. Here it says says that it's the father's domain until she comes into his home. So it's a kasha and Rav that it's considered a full truma. Rav was upset that kasha, even though defending they bring the right to Rav against Rav that don't go after things. Don't bring proofs from things that could be interpreted differently. Means even though that might be the pashup shot, but it's not such a good raya, and don't bring rayas from such kind of mishnayos. With who he could answer you. That's the same thing. That since it says in the Mishnah that Masira is also like chuppah, is also like Rishus Habal, even though it says actually the kanas l'chuppah, that's what it means. Masira is also good enough. So that's not a kasha. Don't bother Ravasi with such a kasha. So we have no proof yet. Again, Rav said she cannot eat truma. Ravasi said she could eat truma. How about a third opinion? Shmuel Amar Yerushasa. Shmuel says that the whole Mishnah that talks about the delivery, the handing over, is also considered the Rishus Habal is only as far as Yerusha. If she dies, the husband yashin her. But not as far as other things. Not as far as Truma. He also is going to be on the side of Rav. Not for Truma, maybe not for other things also, just Yerusha.
Oh,
Yerusha, for her Yerusha, that he yashin her. If she dies, even though she didn't get to the husband's house yet, but she was given over, now it's to consider the husband's, and he's going to yashin her. But not about other things. It doesn't mean the Masira doesn't make her married for other purposes, only for Yerusha, and surely not Truma. He holds like Rav, that not for Truma.
Only for the Yerusha.
Right. As far as the ksuba goes. Now, what does that mean? As far as the ksuba goes, what does that mean? Ksubasa mahi, the imesa yarosla. What does the word ksuba? Usually ksuba would mean that he yashes the ksuba, that the ksuba means that dowry, the nadunya, that she brought in, that he yashes her. That's the same thing as saying Yerusha. How did the Shmuel, if he meant that, then it's the same as Shmuel, that it just means that he yashes the ksuba that she brought in. It means something else. It means that if now she's going to get divorced, or that the husband dies and she's going to marry somebody else, and she called a basula for the second husband, or she called already a nesua, means that she was not yet relations, husband didn't have relations, he wasn't together with her in the house yet, but is it called the fact that she was given over to the husband? Maybe it's called already a nesua, and therefore if she marries somebody else now, either because the husband's going to divorce her, or that the husband died and now she's marrying somebody else, is she called a basula who's eligible for 200 husband, or she's only almana. And the law is even if she would not have had relations, also she doesn't get. If that happens, that a woman, she was in a sewer but she never had relations, it was not consummated marriage. Even though she was in a sewer, she came to her husband's house, but they didn't have relations, and then she gets divorced or he dies, and she marries somebody else. She doesn't get ksuba malan. And here it's saying that giving over the Masira, even on the road, giving over to the delegation of the husband is also makes her now in a sewer, and if she's going to remarry, she's not eligible for a ksuba masayim. She doesn't get 200 for the next husband. Okay, so that was Rish Lakish's pshat.
That's Rish Lakish.
And also, right, and also he's not for truma not. He's saying that truma not. So other things, Yerusha for ksuba mana, but not for truma. Rabbi Yochanan, they hold like Rabbi Asi that she also gets truma. So we had some opinions said she gets truma, some opinions said she doesn't get truma. The lineup is going to be Rav and Shmuel and Rish Lakish, all of them didn't say truma. But Rabbi Asi, Rabbi Yochanan, and Rabbi Chanina said even for truma. Now the Gemara is going to bring a brisa. The brisa is going to say it's a long brisa, but just to skip.
Again, we have the same question on what? I'm sorry.
Does she get truma? If she was given over to the husband's delegation,
Does she have a schus to teach
does she have? Can she eat truma? Yeah, that's what it says. Right. Can she eat truma from being given over? So far we had a machlokes. Some say yes, some say not. That's gonna be a long brisa. And just to look at the screen a second, just jump about 10 lines. It's going to be saying the brisa. The brisa is going to say the favorite for truma not. That's going to be the kasha. That he says even says the Yerusha says Shmuel's opinion. Mamish says Shmuel, and but for truma not. Anybody that said truma yes, this brisa is against them because the brisa is going to say for truma not. But till we get there, we have other information in the brisa. We'll read the whole brisa, but that's going to be the kasha at the end of the brisa, 10 lines down. Meisvei. This we have in the Mishnah already that if the father goes along, it's not considered giving over yet because he's still there. If the father goes along with the delegation of the husband, or the delegation of the father goes together with the delegation of the husband, that's not considered given over yet. Or on the road, on the way going from to the husband's house. So there was a chutzah that she owned on the road, and they came together with the husband just to sleep over, not for marriage. So that's not considered a marriage yet. That's not called going into the husband's house. Even though the money that she's bringing in for the dowry is already in the husband's house, but Mesa, if she dies, Avia Yarsha, the father Yarsha, because she's not considered yet given over to the husband, either because the father was going along, or because even if they went into sleep, but they didn't take it, that wasn't a marriage. It wasn't for the going into his domain. It was her chatzah. But if he did give her over to the delegation of the husband, or the delegation of the father gave her over to the delegation of the husband, but he had some place that he owns, and she came in together with him for the purpose of nisuin. That is called a marriage. That's called nisuin.
We don't say for the purpose of nisuin, whereas here we say
right. Before it said lalin, and here it says nisuin.
All the sides are
that is a marriage. Even though the ksuba was not delivered yet, that the money that was designated is in the father's house, but Mesa Bala Yosha, that's already he owes it to the husband, the father owes it to the chassan because there was a marriage, there was a chuppah, there was an asuin, and therefore whatever he gave to the daughter as a dowry, so that there was a marriage and it was consummated, not consummated, they didn't have relations, but it was already considered she's in the suah, and therefore the husband gets that Yerusha. But now the Brisa gets to the point that we wanted, but this whole thing about Masira, the delivery, the transfer is enough to be considered a Nesua, is only if we with too much, if they come as the chuppah, tifta the kula tifta. So tifta on everybody. Everybody, Rashi and Taisa say doesn't mean everybody. It means all those that said that she gets truma. Here it says she does not get truma. So it's not against everybody. It's especially good for Shmuel. Shmuel's the one who said Yerusha. Others didn't say Yerusha. Others said other things about ksuba and maybe other things. But here, Shmuel is surely good. And even the ones who say she doesn't get truma are also good. But those who say that she does get truma, the Bryce is fairish against them. And that's the end. That's the end of that point. If you go a little bit over time, a little bit just to finish off this Gemara, Hagufa Kasha. The Bryce seems to be contradicting. Amrit nechasa imo lalin, time of the lalin, hastam ol Hashem nesuin. The Gemara is asking contradiction because the Brysa, that the case about going into sleep in the Chatzar, going in for the Suin to going the purpose of the how about the case is not talking about that they said anything beferish. The Gemara thought it's talking about that they said beferish we're going to sleep just to stay overnight. And the other side was the other case of the Bryce was they said varishes for marriage. No, it doesn't mean that. Both cases are talking about stam. Stam is stam katani. They didn't say anything. Stam chadsa dida lalin. Stam chadsa dida linasuin. The case of the Bryce was in the beginning. It spoke about her chadsa. Here it says shai salah chadsa b'derech v'nichasayim olalin. So it's not saying that so the pastor says that they didn't go to marriage. It's her chassan. So he didn't take her into her. He didn't take her into her house for the purpose of coming into my domain. It's her domain. If they would have said beferish, if this is going to be marriage now, okay, that's a marriage. But if it wasn't, so then it's considered only sleeping over.
The other way is much stronger than should be marriage.
What?
But the other way around, you'd say.
By
yes.
the chatzar, I used to love chatzar, if it's
And
chatzar, so then even
Nisuin,
and if they didn't say, even if they didn't say anything, also so shum nesuin. The stam by her chatzar is going to be not for nesuin, and the stam of his chatzar is for nesuin, even if they didn't say anything. That he had a summer house on the way while they're going on. He had some kind of cottage, and they stopped over. Even if they didn't say anything, that's already the marriage. That's already the marriage. Okay, Adkan. So we're a few minutes overtime, and we got until Tana. We got up till Tana. Yeah, Shikar. We'll be back in a couple minutes with Navi. Back to Navi. Yeah, Shikar. Thank you.